Hello again, everybody. Today we're going to be replacing the struts on a 2004 Toyota Matrix. This should be the same thing on the 2003 through 2008 Toyota Matrix, Pontiac Vibe, and I believe the Toyota Corolla for that area as well. I think the underpinnings on all these cars are pretty much all identical. The basics of what you see are going to be you can apply toward pretty much any car that has the McPherson front strut suspension type setup. Today, instead of replacing the strut and removing the spring that's on the car and putting the spring and all the bumper stops and everything on a new strut, I'm using a quick strut which has all of that. So all I've got to do is disconnect the 3 bolts at the top on the shock tower and the 2 bolts holding it to the spindle down below, or knuckle, whatever you want to call it, and that's it. Hold things out, put the new one back in, I'm done. A couple of things you want to do before you get started. One, you want to make sure you're not wearing something you don't want ruined. I've got a jacket over. It's not a great t-shirt or anything, but I just don't want to get grease or anything on it. Get the car up in the air on jacks and jack stands. You want both sides in the air. You're going to have to disconnect your sway bar links, and when you've got one side up in the air, that sway bar is twisted like this and under a huge amount of pressure. So if you take off the link on one side, that bar is going to pop back into position, and it can pop in back with such force it can, if it hits you or the sway bar link attached hits you, it can actually break bone. So you want to make sure both the front tires are off the ground and hanging at the same time. Get you a light so that you have, or be outside somewhere where you have adequate lighting to work with, and a couple of these gloves come in handy too. When you're working on the front suspension, you got road grime and grease and stuff that's going to get all over you. So, you know, it's easier to throw the glove away than wash all that crap off your hands. So, sometimes that really helps. So, we have the car up in the air. I'm going to get the wheels off this side that I'm going to start with. I'm going to start on the passenger side, since I know the strut on this side is bad. And then I'll show you guys what you need to be doing. Alright, and here's what we have going on. This is a good time to check everything else, make sure it all looks good. Rotor is not in bad shape. My brake pads look pretty good. Everything else isn't bad at all. The boots on my CV shaft are good. My tie rods are good. There's no slack. Check the boots on your CV joints. Those are in good shape there. All that. I did spray right there, and for those 2 bolts there, I sprayed a little bit of WD-40 penetrant on it. But here's why I've got to replace this one. You can see this one is in pretty bad shape. Does not look healthy at all, does it? So I'm going to grab my struts first and make sure everything looks like it matches up. I've got to take this bolt here off for my sway bar link. I've got to take this stuff off for my brake lines, and then I've got to do undo these 2 bolts here. And it looks like with all the oil leaking out of that piston there from the blown strut tube, I don't have to worry too much about that having had penetrant in there. I think it's been soaked with oil plenty. So let me get started here. Okay, another thing you want to check is to make sure the orientation for your strut is correct. If you look on the boxes, the box will have a right and a left, and right and left are as you're sitting in the driver's seat. So this would be the right, the passenger would be the right, and the driver would be the left. Now notice the tab up on top where my strut has the mounting point for my sway bar link is on the left. my mounting bracket that sticks out the back for the brake components, and then the tabs that lock into the spindle are on the front there. So if I orient this so the tabs are on the front here, notice my bracket is on the wrong side there and there. So I have the box that says left, and I have verified that this is for the driver's side. So I'm going to go take this and set it over here for when we get over to that side. I'm going to come grab my strut out of this box and make sure I did indeed get a proper pair sent to me. Yep, okay. Tabs facing forward, and then that is on that side, just like that one. And then the brake things are in the back on this side. So they do indeed match. I have verified that. So I just want to make sure before I get too far into this, because it would really suck getting real far into this and then finding out you got the wrong parts. So look at them first. It'll save you a lot of time. All right. One thing I'm going to do real quick, like if I get my light around here where I can show you where this goes in here, I'm going to spray a little lubricant on it. It'll be easier to get loose later. Make sure all of that is easy to move. I may need to take my wheel speed sensor off here too. I don't know. I'm probably going to end up moving it just so it doesn't get hurt or damaged. But one thing you want to do, depending on the manufacturer for this could have a back hold for getting this nut off, because you turn this nut, the piece inside this is the ball portion is going to spin. So you've got to have some way of putting a counter hold on it. Now this happens to have a T40 Torx bit that goes in the center of it, and grime and dirt can get in there over periods, so you want to clean that out with a brass brush or a grill brush, a screwdriver, and some brake clean, whatever you can use to get inside there and clean that out, because these have a tendency to strip out real good. I'm going to use my impact first to try to get this broken loose. So it is broken loose. Now I should be able to take my screwdriver to finish getting, my wrench and this to finish getting that out. Alrighty, let's see if you can see me, what I'm doing here. Now I turn this like I'm tightening it, because that makes this go like it's loosening it. And see, this one's coming off really easily. You don't always get that lucky. Spraying them ahead of time will help, but sometimes these things get so corroded on there, you basically just have to take a pair of vice grips to hold back from behind, which usually ruins this boot, so you just have to end up budgeting to replace these sway bar links. Thankfully, the sway bar links are inexpensive. These are a little bit loose, but not horrible. There's no jiggling, they're just a little loose. So I'm going to continue to run these for now. And now I'm going to get this piece removed, and then I'll come down here and get this. Alright, the bolt that holds this stuff on right there is 14 millimeter. That came off, and then this just sets there, and then this picks up. Notice that there is a little tab on top of it that goes right inside this little slot right there. So when you put it back on the other side, you set that back down in that slot. That'll just help you position it. And then this just sits right on top. So that is all removed. Now I'm going to get back here and remove this. And I can't see down there to see what size that is, so let me... I still can't see. I'm using the phone to help me see. Oh, just right on the back of it, looks like there's a little 10 millimeter bolt holding it on. So let me get that off real quick. See that back there? All right, next thing I'm going to try to do is break these free up here. And believe it or not, this is all 12 millimeter. And I want to make sure it goes down on there good, because this is rusted, but that broke loose pretty good. Okay, so good there. And I just want to start those turning. See if I can get my other one down in there. I'm going to use a persuader to help seat it in place properly. Okay, got that one to break loose. And see if I can get down to this one. It's a little bit tight right there. But let's see if it'll go. Might need to take this pin out of here. I'm not sure. Or see if I've got a thinner socket or something. That's going to be a pain to get on down there. Okay, I think I got it in place though. Yep, it's enough to let me break that free. So those are all broken free. Now I can just take a regular 12 millimeter wrench. Should be able to anyways. Yep, and those will come off pretty easily. Now I don't want to remove all three of these. I want to relieve one, at least to allow this to hang, because when you drop your strut from down below, when it's loose from everything, it's just going to kind of hang, and it'll fall down on you. So I'm going to leave like this bolt that's easy to get to, still threaded in so that I can just undo it by hand. So let me finish getting those off and we'll be right back. Alrighty, now we move on to removing the bolts that hold the strut onto the knuckle. Those are 22 millimeter on both sides. And if you don't have a 22 millimeter for your back hold, just use like a big adjustable wrench or something. Let's see how easy this breaks off. This part is always the fun part because you never know what's going to happen. And actually, I think I want to go from the nut side over here to get the nut off and back hold this. Not too bad. Might be able to get that with a torque the rest of the way. Let's find out. Oh my gosh, look how quick and easy that was. I'm going to try the torque on the bottom and see what happens. This is just a little $100 thing I got from Amazon. Okay, looks like we get the big guns out then. We tried. Here we go, it's loosening. This is the hardest part of the whole project right here. Might have actually loosened it pretty good with the torque wrench. If I'd have had an air impact, it would have come right off. Okay, so I want to push in on this so I can start working this out. Just wiggle, it'll help come out. Might easier if I got something like this. Help it out a little bit. There we go. Now the bottom one. There we go. Bottom one comes out pretty easy. And now this, see, it's just hanging there. Now watch to make sure it doesn't hit your boot right here. So I can just roll this kind of back a little bit. Make sure this is all out of the way. Then hold it and unscrew this the rest of the way. Or you could use two people to do this as well. There it goes. There we go. That is one strut out. So now we just got to reverse the process to put the new one back in. All right, now comes one of the hardest parts of all, getting this sucker back up in there. If you're by yourself, it can be a bit of a pain. So you want to make sure this plate, try to get this lined up with this piece facing out if you can, as you get it angled up in there. And then this plate needs to be angled in the proper way so that the screw holes go in. Now to do that, these holes right here line up, the ones in the back go directly across the car. So these make a triangle with the triangle pointing forward. That's how these would line up. So let's see if I can worm this in there. One, two, three. All right. So, before I do anything else, let's push this in, lift up on this, and see if we can get these bolts back in. There's one. There's two. Now, be careful of your dust shield. As you grab this, you could crush your dust shield down here and make it rub up against your brake rotor. This one is toast. It needs to be replaced. I mean, it's crumbling as I touch it. So at some point, in the future when I do a brake job, I'll replace that shield. But now it is just a matter of getting my nuts put back on. There's not a lot of play on this. These aren't eccentric or anything. So as long as you get them pushed back in good and tightened up, you should still be good. It is a great idea to get an alignment after you're done though. So all I've got to do is tighten these down, and then I'm going to go tighten the ones on the top. And that's it. While I was at it, I took this off. It was rusted, and just cleaned it up a little bit, cleaned the loose scale off, got some brake cleaned it off, and spray painted it with the same black that I painted the rims. Alrighty guys, we are done with this side. Don't forget to put your brake line and wheel speed sensor holder back in place there. Put your sway bar link back in place, tighten that down good, and put your wheel speed sensor back in with your 10mm nut. And that doesn't tighten down real hard. That's just a little plastic piece there, so just snug it down. It just needs to hold it in place, that's it, nothing special. Everything else looks like it is in pretty good shape in here. We have our new strut in. So now I'm going to put the wheel back on this side, move over to the other side. I think I'm going to take a little break first and get me some water. Wasn't a huge job, but the temperature is beginning to creep up a little bit, and this jacket doesn't let a lot of air through, so I may change into something a little bit different so I don't sweat so much. But now I'm on to the next side and I'm done. That's it. That's how easy it is to replace a strut in most cars these days when you use the quick strut method. It's not a whole lot more expensive. Half the time when you get an old strut off, you're going to find your bellows or your stop or something they're not quite as good as you thought they were, so you're going to end up having to buy those parts anyway. By the time you get done, you've bought a quick strut, minus the spring. So might as well throw the spring in and get the whole thing. I mean, it really is an inexpensive thing these days. The springs are not an expensive addition, so might as well go ahead and do it. And it makes his job so much easier. So this is going to make a huge difference. I could tell that strut was blown. It was really not doing a whole lot. So we're going to move on to the other side, and we'll have front end restored on this car. Next video, you'll have to catch me. These lower control arms, we're going to be tackling those too, just to get this thing more like new.